Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Recruit Military Live, a continuing series of live broadcasts covering all things military transition, veteran employment, mil-spouse employment, and much, much more. My name is Lucas Connolly, retired U.S. Army officer and former TAP program manager, here to share with you the ins and outs of navigating the turbulent waters of civilian employment. If you're in search of meaningful employment, well, folks, you're in the right place. Visit rmvets.com/live. to learn more. Okay, let's roll into today's show. Are you a job seeker looking to refine your skill set in a way that captures the attention of employers? Are you looking to take your next job interview to a whole nother level? Well, if you've answered yes to both of those, you're in the right place, so don't touch that mouse. Today, we're going to be talking about the skills that are in high demand in the modern employment marketplace and touching upon some of the things you can do to showcase those skills and deliver a slam dunk performance at a job interview. Our guest today is a man of many talents. His company, MJW Careers, has been helping clients draft world-class resumes, to create attention-grabbing social media profiles, and to prepare for winning interviews for more than 14 years. His LinkedIn feed is littered with thank you notes and success stories from his clients. He's joined us in the past. We love having him on. We're excited to have him back. He's a genuine subject matter expert. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Mr. Matt Warzel. Matt, welcome back.
Great to be here, Lucas. I'm not that I have favoritism, but you definitely rank in the top one of my favorite shows to do.
Of all the shows you enjoy doing, this is one of them.
I love it. This one gets down to brass tacks more than a lot of the other ones I do. Not to say that I don't enjoy those as well, but those kind of tend to sit on the macro level. I like how me and you get into nitty gritty. So let's hope someone gets something out of this.
Well, I certainly hope so as well. You know, I used to have a boss that would tell the intel officer, you know, these theories you have are great, but give me something actionable. And I like to tell our audience, we're going to stay away from the macro, the platitudes. We're going to give you some actionable information. So if you just tuned in for the first time, stay tuned. You're going to hear some stuff. Get your pen out. You might want to take some notes.
Fantastic.
All right. Now, folks out there, you know who we are. Let's hear who you are, who you with, who you served with, where you at. What's your status? Are you in transition? Are you retired or thinking about retiring? Are you a caregiver or some other status we haven't thought of? We always welcome a healthy amount of branch rivalry, and we'd love to hear from everybody in the military community. So jump into that chat, contribute, let us know who you are. And if you got any questions, comments, issues, or just plain gripes, feel free to drop them in there. For your questions, assuming we have time, we'll get to them. All right, Matt, we're wheels up. You know, not to overquote Napoleon Dynamite, but some people say I have skills. The question is, what skills are employers looking for? I've heard advice from 1,000 different people, everything from go back to school, get a certification, refine your soft skills. Let's talk big to small. When I was younger, somebody told me, go to business school, get yourself an MBA, you're guaranteed career success, six-figure salary. What say you, sir?
You know, obviously we have shifted in a mindset of school, right? Education. I was a part of the generation that you had to go, although, you know, 10 years apart from my older siblings, they were part of a generation of like, you maybe can't go, whatever, didn't matter. It was more priority of getting work. And again, different upbringings. Everyone has different values, different beliefs and stuff. But I feel like it has really shifted again towards, do I need this piece of paper, right? These kids are seeing, you know, whether it's friends having their own little businesses or, I mean, I don't want to get into the viral stuff, but when we have 14-year-olds making $1 million, you wonder what some of those friends are thinking. So we can't quite, you know, get in the heads of what the youth is thinking or perceiving as an education and how much value it holds. So I mean, I don't want to go too off the rails already, but I mean, I've talked to my wife already about our 5-year-old. He just turned 6. And I'm like, I'd want to get him into real estate at 18 and just like try to get him prepared for life earlier so that maybe he doesn't even have to go to school, right? So again, I'm on the belief side of if it is something that's going to get you more value as an employee, as a person, going to improve your worth, right, from the perception of the hiring managers, or it's a mandate, because again, I used to recruit HVAC techs and we put them in vans and they had to have a degree because the insurance mandated it, right? So some of the guardrails will actually force you to do it, right? If you want to go be a doctor, I don't see another workaround. But having said that, again, I'm not sure that school is kind of what the mystique it used to have, especially when I was growing up, right? So to get to your point, the long answer short, depends on the person. There's no one answer. But if you're going to consider an MBA, which is, again, taking that extra effort of a degree, there has been results that, yes, you can improve your net worth, that employers will give that perception, again, of what they're going to pay you. It will increase for you, right? It's going to show them that, hey, maybe we'll give this person an extra 50 grand or what have you. So when it comes down to you personally out there, though, I would do your research of what do you want to do, and then reverse engineer from there of what others in that field are doing. If you're noticing it's a field like manufacturing where you can maybe get in at the ground and work your way into a leadership role without necessarily having to go to school, because again, they pride a little bit more of the skills based in that environment, learn the ins and outs early on. Again, maybe, but if you want to be a doctor, though, I don't see another way around it.
At least any doctor that's taking care of me, that's for sure.
Right.
At least I hope so. And I can say from, being someone who majored in criminal justice and sociology, I can tell you that majors matter. Like just going to college and checking a box, and, spending 6 years getting a 4-year degree in liberal arts. Lots of people go to school for 6 years. They're called doctors. But look, don't just pick, if you're going to go higher education, like you just said, find out where it is you want to be. Okay, I'd like to be a software developer for a video game company. Okay, so what do those people have in their pedigree? Don't just go down to your local university and bang out a liberal arts degree and cross your fingers and hope for success. It's not going to happen.
No, and I, in hindsight, is, again, we're all with Rod Stewart. I wish I knew now what I knew then. Again, I wish I would have taken school a little bit more serious. I was on that side of like, have some fun, socialize, get my work done. I had to graduate with a marketing degree. That was my minimum standard. Just get a marketing degree and not get into sociology, liberal arts type things. So I worked my buns off to graduate with a marketing degree from the business school. It took some effort. So it kind of quasi got me a little bit of a educational background, but I never used any of the information I freaking learned in my real world. So again, if you're going to go get the degree just to get the piece of paper, you really aren't going to really enjoy what you can get out of school. And so in hindsight, I wish I could tell my 18-year-old self, take this serious, try to be something you want to be, and use education as the foundation of learning what that entails, rather than, hey, I guess I'll go do sales and marketing because I can talk to people. Have a plan of action if you really are going to go and continue education. If you're 18 out there, please research and do a little bit for your 40-year-old self.
Yeah, and don't take advice from people that don't know. Like, God bless my father. He's a great man. He was a great parent. He served his country for many, many years. He doesn't know anything about education. He told me, hey, you go study what you want, study what you enjoy, and the money will come. Wrong. Study what's marketable.
There you go.
And then you can market yourself. And for those of you who are keeping track, so far we've got 3 pop culture references in the beginning of the show, 1 Napoleon Dynamite, 1 Tommy Boy, and 1 Rod Stewart. A free T-shirt goes to the person who guesses the total number at the end of the show.
You got me on.
Hint, the T-shirt will be used and tan. All right. Moving on to certifications. There's a lot of people talking about certifications. It's alphabet soup to many of us. There's technical certifications, there's management certifications, there's project management, and it all kind of makes my head hurt. And for many of us who are uninitiated, and we are uninitiated, there we go, Batman reference. All right. And for those of us who are uninitiated, it can be a sea of abbreviations that don't make any sense. What stands out as most marketable?
So this is a good question. And I've done my research over the past just about helping clients. What do they think they need? And again, I hate to beat up the dead horse. Reverse engineering is key, because reverse engineering is not only going to give you information about how you can become this product leader at a company like a Microsoft that someone already is doing. And you can go to their LinkedIn profile and see, how did they get that trajectory? What was their succession plan? What did they do? Right. But you can also scroll down and look at their certifications. So the obvious choice is go and research people that are doing what you want to be doing at the companies you want to be working at, and what do they got. Second, though, when you're doing your research, and I love the fact that we have their fingertips, especially with this ChatGPT stuff. It can condense research for you quickly. Do some searches, figure out who's been around for a while, right? Like we all know the PMI, Project Management Institute, and everything that they've done to date has been recognized as valid, recognized as something that if you want to go be a PMP, you got to go get a PMP certification, right? Through that institute. So look for who's got the legacy, look for reputation, search some reviews on Reddit. Did people go through the program and realize it was a waste or a scam? If there's some out there that you're not sure on, like for instance, I pulled up a list here. If we see something like CAPM, we know that's legit just through as being in the staffing industry for 20 years and coaching industry. I get what that means, but as someone who's on the block, who's like, maybe I want to go be a project manager, is this valid? We'll go do a search. What's CAPM under? Who certifies it? Is that a legit brand, right? So the buyer beware is what it comes down to, no matter what industry you're in. And I mean, you can get a list, a list of just a ton of acronyms that are valid. It could still be overwhelming, right? So first start with, what do I want to do? And what are some certifications that look like people that are doing this work? Hey, I've put that list together. And then start to do individual research. Now, again, this might take you a couple hours, but for you to save yourself, I don't know, hundreds of bucks, maybe thousands, and for you to save yourself the headache of not going through a scam type course or something that's not going to validate your credentials in the employment world, then why waste your time, right? So don't go and just get every acronym under this God's earth to put on your resume. I have seen that even in my coaching world where people have like 15 different ones now. And half of these, I mean, to get through them, you're not even doing that much. You're maybe writing a resume and they go, well, this looks good. Here's your certification. So again, if you have something that's not as robust either, that could be a warning sign, because typically ones that are hard to achieve, not as many people have them. And thus it becomes something that is a little bit more valid for the hiring process. So research.
Yeah, and some of these are not easy. You don't just sign up, take the test, and get it. A colleague of mine took the SPHR, which is a senior professional human resource.
Right.
It's there's global PHR, which is one step above that, but as far as domestic HR is concerned, it's one of the hardest ones. And he was a career HR professional, and I asked him, I said, how hard was the exam? He shook his head and he said, toughest 4 hours of my life.
Right.
And I was like, okay, that's a pretty heavy indictment. As far as the resource is concerned, yeah, definitely it can be hard to discern, but there are some reputable organizations out there. PMI is definitely one of them. The Onward to Opportunity program over at Syracuse University is pretty fantastic. And if I'm not mistaken, I'd say any one of those organizations, there's probably a human being in there that you can reach out to, talk to them about your goals. They can guide you in the right direction. Okay, you don't know much about HR, SPHR might not be for you. It might be an APHR.
Yeah, and if anybody out there in the audience that's wondering if there's a certain cert that they've been kind of eyeing up, feel free to email me. I'd be glad to do a little bit of my digging around for you for free, just for being a part of the show today. So I have no problem helping you make that decision too. And if I can't find any information, I'll be blatantly honest with you. So there's other people out there willing to help too. So reach out to even some colleagues and, hey, what'd you guys get that you thought was pretty beneficial for your career or whatever. But again, LinkedIn has all this stuff. There's resumes on LinkedIn showing you what people have already achieved. Get on there and find your hardest part's finding the hiring managers you want to be like, right? So start with that. Where do you want to work and what do you want to do? And then go from there.
Well, the military people should be able to understand that. I think when we were all junior officers or junior enlisted or what have you, we could look at the bio of the incoming commander, the bio of the incoming sergeant major, and then we would see, okay, this person has made it to E9, this person has made it to 06. What did they do? Okay, well, Ranger School, infantry officer, airborne, jump master, drill sergeant. There's some common threads here. They went above and beyond. They have certain things in their pedigrees. So yeah, like you said, go find that senior HR, CHRO, that COO or what have you in that company you're interested in. Look at what's on their pedigree.
Exactly. It's all about ROI, right? Because this piece of paper is supposed to give you more knowledge, skills, which turns into money. And so if it's not giving you any ROI, or it just looks like it's one off, kind of everyone can get it, it's probably not going to give you much more meat on the salary negotiation bone.
And what's funny is I talked to somebody who's an expert in the field And I said, hey, give me the meat and potatoes. If I get a PMP certification, how much more money am I putting in my pocket? Let's get right down to brass tacks. Is that going to put some more money in my pocket? And if my memory serves me correctly, she said it was somewhere between $3,500 and maybe $4,500 expected salary increase just because that's on your resume.
Right, which percentage wise could be a big break for you. But in hindsight, if you're a PM making 150K already, in doing the work you like, is it worth going and messing around with something that's only going to give you X amount of dollars? And again, money's money, right? $5,000, but how much you paying for that PMP for it to weigh in on the $5,000 a year extra that you're going to get? But if you're a PM already that's doing great and you already have a salary kind of increase, succession plan with your company and stuff, really take into consideration your situation. But if you're someone wanting to really dig their knuckles into this PM world, and you see that, hey, I need that $5,000 a year extra because again, it's going to snowball into more money down the road, and I don't have as much experience, etc., then yeah, that might give you that extra nudge for the interview, right? So everybody, it just depends on your level of experience too. So before you spend any money, though, please just do your research to make sure it's worth your while.
All right. So now that we've beaten that horse, let's talk skills. All right. When you get to that skills section in your resume, usually you get your professional summary at the top of your resume, and then somewhere below that, you've got your list of skills, leaning towards hard skills. Maybe you could explain for the audience, what is the difference between a hard skill and a soft skill?
Yeah, that's great. So hard skills, think of things like methodologies, right? So like if you know the waterfall methodology or Kanban or what have you, or technical aptitude, right? If you use MS Project, I don't know, we're on the project management train today, but if you have a technology, a software, or it's going to be skills that are related to the operational side that aren't necessarily a part of your being, but more of what your execution can be in within the operations, right? So think of budgeting. That's a skill. You personally aren't going to call yourself, I'm really a budgetable person, although I guess you could maybe use that, but let's think logical. You might be spendthrifty, but okay, if you're doing budgeting day to day, that's a physical activity that is a hard skill, because not many people, or I guess not other people, may not be able to do that, right? But things like communication or time management, personal onus type stuff is more of a soft skill. Think of adjectives. My soft skills, I only write them on the resume in the summary, and I use them as an adjective. Flexible, project management professional, blah, 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 blah. Flexible is the the soft skill there.
Yep.
So think of things that make you your being, and those are the ones. And now be selective, though, with how you're going to translate this stuff on the resume, because some of them, again, time manager is a snooze fest. Everyone should be able to manage time. Everyone should be able to communicate, right?
Yeah, effective communication.
You get the problem solving. Oh, well, that's great. Geez, we haven't seen someone who could problem solve in years. Let's get this person in the door.
Here we were about to hire somebody that causes problems. I don't know what we were thinking. Let's get this problem solver instead.
You know what I mean? So worry more about hard skills when it comes to displaying those as their own section and weaving them into certain areas of the resume. Because here's the other deal. Hard skills are what recruiters use to physically search for you when they're looking for resumes, when they're sourcing, right? So when I was a recruiter, I recruited for 12 years. Every time I had a requisition, I'm looking through that and I'm highlighting the oddities in the requisition, because if I'm looking for a salesperson and I go and type in sales or account manager, I'm going to get 1.5 million people just in my city. So how do I condense that down? Well, think like recruiters. What would they use? Well, this particular one needs Salesforce. They have to use Salesforce. Cool. Now I have a hard skill that not everyone's going to have on the resume. So now I condense it down to 10,000 people. And now what am I going to use? Well, maybe they have to be a spin salesperson. We're teach everyone on how to do spin. Okay, well, now I'm going to go and type in spin and see if any salespeople put that down as a methodology. So that's the name of the game, is thinking of words that are unique to the role and that recruiters are going to use to find you, and get those on there without fibbing, obviously. But right. And I'll cap it off with this. A good practice is going to, let's call it 5 job openings that you really like. They're all relatable. Don't be jumping around titles. All relatable. Go through, highlight the stuff that relates, highlight the stuff in a different color that you can do, and highlight stuff in the third color of what you can't do. The can't do's, you're going to go find a way to do it, right? And there's a way to go find a certification you might need, or any hard skills you might need to go attain. And that'll even help you figure out what certifications are legit. If you start seeing job descriptions that have 15 job descriptions with the same certification, this must be important.
Yeah, it's an industry trend.
Right. So that'd be a good way to upskill. The things you can do, get them on the resume, but don't just say, hey, I can do this. Spin it so it says, yeah, I can do this, Mr. and Mrs. Manager. Not only can I do it, I have done it. And here's one little quick proof point. And now you have an accomplishment on the resume that relates to what they're doing. They're going to like to hear about that in the interview. And then finally, anything that you, what was the last one I said? Can do. Again, just highlight everything so you have the ability to figure out what you need to put in your resume and what you got to go and figure out how to upskill. Sorry, trailed off there, but that's the gist of it. Reverse engineering this stuff.
That's okay, brother. I was following you the whole way. And it's funny, you said something about fibbing, because sometimes we fib on a resume without understanding it. And I've seen so many resumes. So, and I'll give you an example. I was working with a candidate who was responsible for the office budget. So based on that, they put on the resume financial planner. I once, I had a role in the Army where I was an observer, coach, and trainer. So I put on my resume performance coach. I've seen people that were involved with projects that their leadership team had given them and then put on their resume project manager. All three of us trying to communicate something, all three of us wrong, because we just represented a hard skill. Certified. Those are all certifications. And of the three of us, we didn't have them. So have you seen this?
Yeah, that's where you hire people like me that connect the dots, because it's innate. It is something that we develop as resume writers and recruiters, is that ability to connect. Okay, here, this is something that I always remember. When I went through, I was working at, I believe it was John's Controls, and we had hired someone. It was a different office. And I was like, man, I would not have connected these dots, because the way that their succession plan was and where they got hired at. And I had the recruiter tell me how they connected it. And I was like, okay. And so essentially, bad recruiters are going to recruit the titles, and they're just going to look at titles and go, well, they don't match. And they're going to those are the people that tend to recruit the requisition and not the candidate. Because good recruiters recruit the candidate, so we can put them in a pipeline and use their talent down the road for if something comes up for that particular person. Versus requisition, you're just looking at resume screening, not finding the people that you probably could have had from older requisitions that you might, if you were recruiting the talent, right? So this is like one of those things where, to connect the dots, you truly have to be doing this stuff a while. And job hunters don't write resumes all day. That's what we do. So that's why you got to essentially rely on some professionals if you're not savvy enough to figure out, how does teaching translate to data analyst? And so what I would say is, well, we can figure out some of the hard skills that may have a different terminology in the education space, but is relatable still. Just like my military civilian clients, how to translate machinist mate, and that kind of work into the resume as a civilian. So you just got to have either understand the connected dots through own research and kind of going through it, or hire someone, because they'll get it right. And now you have first impressions that matter. And heck, you might be saving yourself X amount of months of being unemployed because you had the resume done professionally and you got the interview sooner. And now you got more money for those 3 months rather than being on the bench.
Yeah, absolutely. And you said something about hiring for the rec versus hiring for the person. And if you've ever read Lou Adler, Hire with Your Head, he talks about an interesting concept called key performance outcomes. All right. So let's say I've never gotten my PMP certification. I've never had a job that said project manager, but I've been involved in large scale projects as a part of my role. I've been responsible for budgeting. I've been responsible for timelines. I've been responsible for synchronizing tasks and resources in time and space. I've generated all the similar outcomes that you would expect from a project manager, but I've never actually been an official project manager. So I think the advice there is, okay, I don't have that sheepskin. I may be working on it. When I get to the interview room, I can highlight some of the things I've done that are comparable to the outputs, the outcomes that you expect of the person that's in this role, not just PMP. Check.
Right. Exactly. And essentially, with the hiring managers, you're just trying to convince them that you're going to make their life easy. You have that value, whether or not it's exactly in the same title, quote unquote, because everyone gets hung off by these titles because, as references, we can go and ask HR what was their title. And if you tell me project manager on your resume and you were a product manager, right? Because now you're lying on an application. So you just got to use the pros. The way you write the verbiage is how you set the table. So you're not making any misleading statements. And that's what I'll do with, for instance, my early career folks. I'll say early career experience or aspiring project manager if I'm teaching, because you're not lying. You're just choosing how to set the table, right? So again, just took me 20 years, but it's just people like me have that wherewithal to connect the dots.
Okay. So when we talk about hard skills, I hear everything you're saying. I'm with you 100%. I like to couch this down to replicable, objectively accessible, teachable, standardized, and perhaps certifiable. Now, once we get into the squishy stuff, the soft skills, there are actually, correct me if I'm wrong, some soft skills that bubble to the top that employers are looking for. And, punctual and hardworking are not necessarily them. If we're looking to highlight certain soft skills that employers actually care about, what might some of those be?
I'll tell you, with COVID, I know adaptable was like the number one. Resilient and adaptable were like ranking so high. And it's funny that if you just throw a couple keywords like that into your summary, it does stand out for some recruiters and hiring managers because some do care about soft skills. I don't want to neglect it like it's it's like a cover letter. There are some wonky hiring managers that only look at cover letters first. So you got to play that game, right? So same thing with the soft skills. It's good to still weave in soft skills that you believe are true to be you. Now, if you're putting adaptable and you can't stand change, again, could be a neat little trick because, again, it's a nice soft skill everyone's using. But if you get into the trenches and all of a sudden you're the one yelling at your coworkers, they're probably going to find out pretty quick. So it's not a test. It's not a history exam. They're not going to go and ask your doctor if you're adaptable. So put it on there if you think it's going to help. But I do know adaptable. And I do know resilient, and I know emotional intelligence is
that's the hot one.
That's the hot one right now. So we got to be able to control our feelings. So
positive workplace relationships, right? You just can't stomp and scream and knife hand your way to success anymore. You actually have to. Yeah.
Go ahead.
You actually have to be like, I don't want to say you have to be likable, but people have got to want to work with you. And if you're slashing and burning your way to your next KPI, you won't last, because those positive relationships are what's going to help you. And unfortunately, in the military, we like to use terms like, dominating the human environment, which is basically like, alpha personality driven by the sheer sense of will, anger, and outrage. But emotional intelligence is a big one. I've heard that many, many times. And here's the thing that I would point out to folks. Not everybody does this, but some interviewers are going to call you out. Okay, It says here on your resume that you're adaptable. Can you give me an example in the interview room? Because I got caught out on this. I put down performance coaching, and they come right out and ask me, what organization certified you as a performance coach? And long story short, I didn't get that job. But I always tell people, if you're going to put a soft skill on there, be prepared to explain it. Oh, here's an example. Here's an example of how my adaptability enabled me to overcome a seemingly impossible challenge that we had never faced before within the organization and create a successful, unique outcome.
Yep. And you can even, if they get into that point, have a narrative that can explain it, that has some sort of story, some sort of how do I say it? So essentially, your goal is to not beat up a project at any given answer during an interview, right? So you don't want to just keep coming back to some certain project. So if you can weave in a project that's relatable to this role that you were kind of itching to talk about because it's going to resolve some pain points if you were able to execute this type of function in that role, that you can lean on some of your hard skilled type projects while you're answering the soft skill questions. So if they say, hey, how are you at cross-functional communications and like interpersonal relationship stuff, instead of saying, well, I've always been friends with everybody. Everyone calls me the comedian. Don't go sob story though. Keep it a story, but keep it relating to the job. Every answer should sell you for this role.
Yes.
They're not your friends in the interview, right? So as much as they might throw you off to try to get a little peek into your personality, and most times it works because people start going a little personal with these kind of questions. Don't. Oh, let me tell you right now, I was able to work with engineering, sales, and accounting, got everybody together, explained what happened with this project that made the client get upset, got everybody back on the same page, won over the client. Now we're retaining them for $2 million a year again. That's a good story because it's cross-functional relationships, a little bit of leadership, and now it's something that relates to the heart of what the interview is. This interview is an hour long to make sure that you're cool to work with, you can do the job, but proof's in the pudding. They already assume you can do the job, right? But they just want to make sure there's final buttons on there. But it's mainly a personality test at this point in the hire manager room, right? They just want to make sure you're cool enough to not want to strangle after week one.
Yeah, I'll never be cool enough. The question is, am I going to get employed by a company that's equally less cool?
Yeah. Well put. I got to watch my word usage.
So yeah, and for many folks, if they want to put the the $5 word spin on it, it's about are you a match for our organizational culture? In other words, are you going to fit in here? Do you work the way we work? Do you kind of think the way we think? We don't need an automaton. We don't need somebody to just salute the flag and take orders and carry on a daily basis. But they do want to make sure that you're a fit. And I think the places where you most get the opportunity to show that you are a fit for the organization is when you get those behavioral based questions.
Mm-hmm.
And I assume you've had opportunities to coach some folks on those.
Oh yeah, I love interview training. It's one of my favorite.
Could you give us a very brief block of instruction on the STAR method? It's my favorite way of coaching this.
Yes, and that's what I use too when I'm coaching. Situation, task, action, result. Think about it. Also works in your resume. We call it PAR though, but just think of it like this, guys. You're essentially something happened, you took action, and here was the result. It's that easy in terms of a storytelling, right? We always learn the basics of Aristotle's storytelling. The monkey runs up the tree. He throws bananas at people and gets bananas thrown at him, and then he comes down the tree. And that's essentially story, right? We're all trained watching movies going, here, go like this, and then goes back on the resolution. So think of it like that. People like stories, and they like anecdotes. So if you can draw in, and again, under 2 minutes, if you can, because we all know some of these stories can get real long-winded. So that's also the trick. But yes, if you're going to think of it like this, situation, here was something that happened. Task, here's what I did. Here was the action of the task. And here was the result of being done with that project. If you can do this, you can use this not only on your resume, but as a springboard during the interview, because I say this, when I'm writing resumes, I'm giving them the meal. They're going to eat it up, the interview team, and then they're going to bring me in for the interview to talk about the ingredients. My resumes don't mucky the ingredients in the middle of the statements. I keep them cause and effect. Mm-hmm. Same thing should be with this interview. But in the interview, you can talk about the ingredients because now we're actually getting into how you did this, right? So think of it on your resume. You're going to go, I implemented a process improvement, saved us $100,000 a year. Cool.
Quantifiable results.
Quantifiable, easy to understand. Everyone from the marketing major recruiter to the hiring team that has been doing this for 50 years can understand. And then in the interview room, implement continuous improvement that saved $100,000. Let me tell you about how I went about that. What was the action? What was the situation? Well, this machine was dated and it wasn't producing the efficiency we needed. Okay. I was tasked with repairing it. I ended up just finding another vendor to replace it because it ended up being cheaper than keeping this thing on our books and becoming more efficient. The result was it got implemented and now we're up 30% in efficiency or whatever the heck the ending was. And so if you can track this on a brag book when you're at work, and then when you're ready for resume update, people like me asking you, what'd you do? Here's the 10 things I did. And one of those is a really cool continuous improvement story. Now we got it as fodder for the interview, but you got to track this stuff in real time.
Yeah.
2 years from now, you ain't gonna remember half of it.
Oh yeah, and 2 weeks after you've left a company because you didn't like it there, or there was no upward mobility or what have you, it was not the time to try to call your old operations manager back and say, hey, what was the increase in efficiency for FY 2002 after we instituted that 5S program?
Right.
Hello, Paul, are you there? I think there's something wrong with my phone. There's no way he would have hung up on me.
No, not at all. He's not busy.
All right. Hey, listen, this is all great stuff. I wish we had more time, and I'll tell you what, we're going to save a lot of the resume stuff for the end, for another show, and we'll dive after that. But folks, the big takeaways here: education is important if it's marketable and applicable in the career that you're going into. Certifications are important if they are industry valued and they enabled you to do something that you couldn't do before. I think I could probably wrap that up in one sentence there.
I love that.
Hard skills, replicable, teachable, objectively accessible skills like software and technical skills. Hey, either you do or you don't know how to use CorelDRAW. Either you do or you don't know how to program in SAP. It's as simple as that.
Yep.
And then the soft skills, the hot ones: adaptability, resilience, emotional intelligence. And remember to take the opportunity to expound upon those because they're not objectively accessible during your interview. Have I hit all the high points, Matt?
Absolutely. Yeah. Soft skills is kind of like interpersonal, right? The feeling stuff. It's so hard to do definitions. Sometimes you're like, well, I know what it is, but how the hell do I explain it? But I love the way you summarize things. I almost want to be like, can I use that in my articles? But
help yourself.
Thank you, sir. But just think of it like this, guys. Like, recruiters and hiring managers are busybodies. They just want to make sure that they're trying to efficiently bring someone onto the team to eliminate a problem they have, and this person lasts longer than a year. Because the problem is they get burnt either by a candidate getting into the induction process, getting training, and then they leave, or they're hiring people that are inept and they manage to get their way through the interview, or they hire someone that hangs out, right? And then it's actually a good employee for years to come. So they get jaded because people kind of mucky up the water sometimes with hiring and staffing. And I always use this as my final words, so I don't know if I'm jumping all over you, but essentially I always say, just be empathetic to the recruiters and hiring managers, because they're just trying to get their jobs done too. And they're getting pulled away to hire constantly because that stuff's always evolving. So, they don't owe you anything. So go in there, walk softly, carry a big stick, know your confidence, because you have the wherewithal to understand your abilities and how you're going to explain them without wasting time and being efficient with your word choice, and control your perception, because it's not a history exam. And if you are acting properly during your messaging, your application, your follow-up, your interview follow-up, at all those points, if you're carrying yourself professionally, now you have some negotiation at the table at the end, because they have an idea of how much they're going to pay, but you might get on the high side of that based off of how you carry yourself. So it all kind of starts with as soon as you hit submit. So make sure everything's buttoned up. And don't rely on availability. Don't just sit here and go, April 17th, 24, only jobs around in my hometown that I'm hanging out in were these 3 companies. So I took one and now I hate my job after a year. There's ways to find peace with what you're doing if you put the work in. And so hit me up if you need help with that. Just mention Lucas. I'd be glad to give you some freebies, and we'll try to get you so you're not relying on availability, but you're relying on something you actually want to do, and we'll reverse engineer as much as we can to get into that role.
All right, Matt. Tell us the name of the website.
Jobstickers.com hasn't gone away yet. It's like pot stickers, but job stickers. That'll get you to my link tree. Has everything. Blog. I just implemented a new service too. It's called reverse recruiting. Essentially, I apply and I tailor each resume for every role you want me to do. It's a monthly subscription. But instead of you worried about tailoring and where to look for work, and I do all the work for you, all the heavy lifting. So feel free to hit me up about that program. It's been successful so far. It's something that's time consuming, but I think it's getting the brass tacks right. If we got to get a job, we need to show the suitors that we can relate to this stuff. Well, if you got someone like me writing these resumes on the fly, I'm making sure it's tailored.
Awesome. Absolutely important.
Thanks,
Matt, I wish we could stay on all day. We have plenty of material to go into, but thank you for being here. Thank you very much for your time.
Hey, thank you, Lucas.
Hey, and folks, if out there in internet land, if you haven't already done so, do yourself a solid, hit that link, rmvets.com/live. It'll take you to our website where you'll find hundreds, literally hundreds of thousands of job opportunities with tens of thousands of employers around the world and around the corner. You'll also find a library of content, of advice, articles, blogs, videos, job fair schedule, the whole 9 yards. Recruit Military. We are on a mission to help veterans, transitioning service members, and mil spouses find meaningful employment opportunities. On behalf of Recruit Military and the folks that joined us today, thank you very much, Matt, for being here.
Thank you, Lucas. I'll see you next month, hopefully.
Hopefully.
Later, bud.
And join us here in just a few weeks, May 8th, when we will meet with U.S. Army veteran Andrew Eager and hear about his transition from service in the U.S. Army Civil Affairs to the high-demand field of firearms sales, working with such well-known companies as CZ and Lancer Systems. Don't miss out. This has been Lucas Connolly for Recruit Military Live. Until next time, good luck and Godspeed.